Are you ready?
No.
Yeah,
No.
I love
Okay.
it.
Yes, I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
It's one of my favorite
We're gonna
days.
be fine.
Anyway, congratulations.
Fabulous.
Right.
We are gonna look at continuous communication.
So we're in this agenda item. It's focus area 3, right?
Yes.
I see continuous improvement.
Trying to see if we can get it.
Do we have something in here on continuous?
So
Oh,
we're
wait,
gonna
too
do
bad. Okay, I
communication.
just didn't go for it.
Yeah, we're at the very end. I think.
Okay, sorry.
We're fine.
Yep.
For those
Yep.
of you following along on the internet, you're gonna have to turn all the way to page 20 in the posted notes.
Have anybody in our group following?
I thought there was one person. Is
just
this
members of the public.
Members
like
of the
not-
public, yeah.
Oh, there's somebody.
Oh, yeah, and that's a synthesis. And then Sheena,
Shit, it's not here.
Sheena's not here. I don't know if she had to go back to her campus. So,
Okay,
we'll
so,
start.
so the first one, recommendation 1, I'm looking at the graph as well as the other, just to see its support. It's got like 85%, 86% between support and strong support, but it does have a little bit of oppose. So let's see,
Let's take a look.
revise the statement to include engagement. So revise the program standard
That's okay.
to include candidates, mental teachers, supervisors, staff.
I wonder,
Professional learning. So basically, everybody has to have professional development about the tasks, the rubrics, and the scoring. Well,
I am an absolute mess.
so Rebecca, are you looking at the program standard?
No, I'm just
Oh, I
doing,
thought
and I
that's
got
what you
distracted.
said.
I
Okay,
did. but
Okay,
then
I'm not tasking you. I
I'm
thought,
gonna-
I thought you were.
I said I was.
can we take like just 3 minutes just to review? Is that okay? Because I want to look at the percentages as well as the suggestions.
Right.
So if we can just take a minute to process. And then maybe we can start drafting. And I do have the slides. So I'm happy to
Thank you.
listen and help.
When are we done with this?
30. Yeah.
And we only have 3 recommendations.
Yay for us.
Let me look over. We have definitely the most manageable for that.
The reason I asked Rebecca about program standard 5 is one of the things Tina said to me last night was that it kind of makes us look dumb if we make recommendations about things that are already in place and just not enforced.
Mhm.
So that's why I want to see program standard 5 to see what its correct language is, because I don't want to recommend we revise it.
I have program standard 5. You want to see it?
That's what
Yeah.
Rebecca's looking at.
I mean,
Oh, oh, that would be great. Thank you, Ursula.
Thank you.
Because the content of this is just logical and it makes sense. But if it's already there,
Well, I think that's why we've revised. So I know, I think I was on this group. I think we did reference it. And our point was to say there's a lot in there that's already would have improved the process. And so kind of forcing a focus onto it and then looking at maybe there were a couple areas. So yeah, let's look at it. I don't remember the details.
Did you find it?
So.
I did.
I know, it's
Uh,
like,
The first CTC work group I was ever on was in the 90s, and it was Senate Bill 222. And it was 17 meetings in 18 months, and we met all over the state. And I still have out in my garage these 7 binders like this that are all like I saved them all.
It reminds me of what Melissa Hall gave me before she retired. For our accreditation visit, they had a binder that
Mhm.
had things.
Makes me remember, like, how do we make a website? Just to spell it on.
Did you find it, Rebecca? Or you quit looking because they're still looking.
I found the wrong stone. So I just-
Good job.
Sorry.
The TPEs. These are the program standards, and according to the, it's supposed to be on page 22.
I saw something 5 minutes at TPE number 5.
That's where I'm going. Getting in the wrong spots.
That's true. Set program standard, we double check the contents. So preliminary multiple subject program standards, program standard.
Oh, it was in the
Well,
right
at
place.
5 is
That's double-
implementation. Oh, it's page 9.
Page.
Should be 5.
Different by
6, 7,
No, page 5.
it's page 9.
Oh, 9.
Yeah.
5. Like
Okay,
program
so
standard
there
5.
it is.
Okay.
Implementation of a teaching performance assessment. The TPA is implemented according to the requirements of the commission-approved model selected by the program. One or more individuals responsible for implementing the TPA document the administration process for all tasks, activities of the applicable TPA model, in accordance with the requirements of the selected model, which means a TPA coordinator. The program consults as needed with the model sponsor where issues of consistency in implementing the model as designed arise. The program requires program faculty to become knowledgeable about the TPA tasks, rubrics, and scoring. And I feel like that's where the breakdown is. I don't think we have enough language in the accreditation standards to hold institutions accountable for that.
But I need to read it. Like I need to look at it. I can't hear it and
Mhm.
process it. Yeah. We all. So what were the recommendation is that it should include engaging all of these people with meaningful professional development about the TPA. So this already says.
This is what the program is supposed to do.
So it already has faculty. And that's all. So it doesn't go on to the next page. So let's see if it doesn't. Yeah. Candidates assure the appropriate use of materials.
program standard 6.
So it doesn't really, it, it is not explicit about, as I read this, it talks about they should have access to materials, but it doesn't say like training or professional development, and it doesn't specify all the people that this one specifies, including interns.
So what is the recommendation?
That it should include engaging candidates, mentor teachers, and supervising staff and faculty with meaningful professional learning opportunities about the tasks, the rubrics, scoring, and support.
It does say
including
the
interns.
program requires program faculty to become knowledgeable about the TPA task rubrics and scoring.
Yeah, which is a little different than meaningful professional learning opportunities. Because it just has faculty, and this is candidates, the master teachers.
Okay.
I think
interns.
that was the intent, was
Mhm.
going beyond just the university
Right.
staff or the preparation program staff. To the mentor teacher
Mhm.
needs to also understand what I'm working towards, if you're supporting me.
Yes.
So,
I wonder if we could put teeth in this by saying to enable local support.
well,
Like if they're having enough meaningful professional development that they can support locally, I think that. Or is that
things I think.
reaching towards
Well,
a different recommendation?
one is that, but also I think that's not the barrier to local scoring.
Yeah.
It's more about just people, the time and the people to do it.
Because even at Fresno State, where the FAST is happening amazingly well, faculty aren't involved in scoring.
So what if we say that we reviewed program standard 5, this recommendation is not duplicative, it just strengthens it and includes more people. And the key is this meaningful professional learning opportunities.
So they gave me a slide with this recommendation.
Uh-huh.
I can make a note that says we concur that this stands as a useful recommendation, and we can leave it or we can edit.
I would want our note to say, because I've heard this as a question, that we reviewed program 5, this is not already, like, this isn't a new,
Just strengthens what's there.
right, it strengthens and it makes it more specific.
Mhm.
I'm gonna make like almost like the comma.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
good. I wonder, in the tiny little thing of support of the thing, of what the opposition reason was. This is
Hmm.
like almost everybody, there was a little bit, 10% of people were neutral about it. But there was 5% was just like one person who opposed.
I can be transparent about my neutral vote on this.
I
I
can't remember how I voted on it.
I felt like in conversations with the folks who are actually working with educators, they're like, but we do this.
Mhm.
We
Right.
are talking about this. It's built into our coursework. It's built into the 10 hours of professional development a mentor teacher has to do.
That's not standard though.
But it's not standard.
Right.
And so my
Right.
neutral was, if this is already happening, I don't want to like
Yes.
create bureaucracy for this
Right,
either.
which is why I
Yeah.
think putting in there that we reviewed the standard and the standard isn't explicit. Because the 10 hours of mentor teacher training, the standard says mentor teachers have to be trained, but for some people, that means, here you go.
It's
Read
about
this.
the floor, right? So when we're doing accreditation review, there's no language in the accreditation standards that sets the floor for
Yeah.
this.
Okay,
And
I like that.
so, are the institutions that are on that high end of the LPI chart doing this? Yeah, that's where they're
Mhm.
getting great results.
Yeah.
But that third, that 60 all the way to 10% or lower,
Mhm.
that's where it's not happening.
And I wonder if, I remember a conversation talking about site administrators also
I remember that
Oh.
as well.
needing to be aware of what the teachers they're hosting are working towards.
I can add this.
Well, let's think about it for a minute. I mean, part of me says, yeah, the more people that know, the better. Part of me also says, how is that really a necessary element? I mean, we don't want to just add everything into the soup, but like, really, does a principal need to know? I don't know.
I just think if a principal is evaluating current teachers. It would be helpful to understand what the baseline is coming in, what they should expect, how they were prepared, but
I wonder too, with district interns, I'm sure this varies district by district. They're probably still being evaluated on the CSTPs as a matter of employment and not,
exactly.
right? And so I think that adds like a layer of complexity in terms of they might not know because principals largely deal with CSTPs. Also, I think to Tina's point yesterday, they should be treated like professionals who get space and support. And I think if you're not aware of what this process is like, maybe you have been at that for a while because you started teaching in 1992 and there was no version of this. It can be something outside of that experience.
Something we added to our induction program last year was a triad meeting with the mentor, the candidate, and the administrator. And I find it really helpful because the administrators don't know about the induction program.
That's
And these are
exactly
some of them don't know the teacher at their school.
Well, that's, I think, a really good thing to add, but it's a different context because the person in induction is the principal's
Yes.
employees, like they're,
Mhm.
you know, where this is a student
Yeah.
teacher, which is at least one level removed. I'm just thinking, ideally, in a perfect world, you'd want the admin person to know about this, but I don't want the program to be under the gun for including admin or like, I don't have time for this. This is not me, and just don't do it because I think a lot of them wouldn't do it.
Could we say administrators of district interns? I think you are
Because that's the other thing too. I came in as
accepting
an
them
intern.
into your program.
Mhm.
You
My
are,
admin didn't engage.
So how can we word it so that an admin who don't have interns are not specifically excluded, like,
Yeah.
you know, but the admins who do have interns are required and the other ones are like it's available to them, like something like, you know, because I'm
So my experience is we include that in our MOU. So for interns, it's in the memorandum. of
yeah, for
understanding,
interns, but I'm
so that they know. Like
Yeah.
I have, actually, it's a former student of mine who just got a job at a charter school. It's a fully online charter school.
Mhm.
And so our program director for the Mod credential program went to that school, met with the principal in order to ensure that that person is going to have access to students to complete their TPA videos.
Mm.
And so that's how granular we get in our MOUs.
right.
So if they say, no, that can't happen, then they can't be an intern.
But see, I think we've already agreed for interns, it should be required.
Well, it
because-
should be required for everyone,
Well,
right?
for student teachers, I think it's a different level of involvement.
But should the principal be aware of just the fact what the TPA does require because they are having students reported at their school?
I'm just worried about making it a requirement that the principal has to go through the same level of meaningful professional learning opportunities as
Yeah.
the faculty, the cooperating teacher, the student themselves. Like they just don't need all that. And you're going to have a lot of admin who will balk at it. If they have an intern and they're employing them and they're getting paid, yes. But for a student teacher at their school, I just think admin are going to say, you know, and I just want the program to be held
They just go
responsible for
find
getting,
another placement.
yeah,
other than
for,
they
you know,
want
the
this
principal
student
say, if I
teacher.
have to do that, we don't need student teachers this year. We'll just find another school, you know.
So maybe we should just be silent on it other than the interns, or should we just be silent altogether?
Could we put, it says at the bottom, please note this should include intern credential candidates, supervisory authorities. I don't know what the euphemism is for the people who take care of the interns.
Well,
Should engage with administrators.
Clinical.
we're not going to be able to have these little notes at the bottom
Yeah.
anyway. So what if you take that and
That
you,
little bit, that please note.
no, yeah, that include engaging credential candidates, including interns. And
Traditional and
their
intern.
school admin.
Oh,
because that way the school admin is specific to the interns.
Mhm. The language is weird.
You look good
It's hard.
dramatically. I'm so sorry.
I
It just,
know.
Does
I
that
saw the look
work?
on your faces.
yeah,
Including interns and their school administration?
yeah, because you have a list,
Or site
so I'm not sure if I
administration.
should bracket it or, I know.
Do the Met version. He does bullets and it's always very pretty. I
Yeah,
don't know if we're allowed to do it.
engaging credential candidates.
Check, we've got 10 minutes
Oh, we've got
to do 2 more.
Okay, let's.
I'm gonna use the semicolon as it was meant to be, and people can find me if they need to.
Oh, I'm so excited for the fight.
Okay,
The next one about the website.
so,
I just wonder, instead of saying that CTC has to develop it, maybe it's the program sponsor has to develop it. Because, okay, the purpose is to let potential candidates make informed decisions about their credentialing journey, which is not language for a recommendation, but so it's a web page, includes the passing rate for each program, information on the type of PPA, requiring the documents Rubric with them. And then programs have to share this. Well, the part about programs have to share this with data is going to have to go in a program standard. But looking at maybe it is the CTC that does it, but with the support of the program sponsor. I mean, because where are they going to get all that?
so
The program sponsor's got to be on the hook for this too.
I feel like this already exists.
That's what I'm checking right now.
I'm on the CTC website. It has what kind of credentialing program you want to go through, the pros and cons. If you want to go traditional, here they are. Here's a comprehensive database of funding sources.
But does it have
Here's
TPA passing rates for each program?
Here's each university. And what kind of credential they offer. It does not indicate pass rates, but it could be something as simple as like adjusting the user interface of the website that already exists.
Mhm.
Right.
So instead of like $1 million
Establishing a new- So-
like expense,
Mhm.
right? It's
It's
just
adding that.
it's just gently updating, and we should ask if that's possible.
Oh,
But
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
because, well, we just recommended, but yeah, so that's language changes instead of developing this blah, 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 blah.
update.
That it just is the CTA website should include TPA passing rates, you know.
Update.
So you can get rid of that whole first sentence and just change it to CTA's webpage should include CTC.
We have this room, right? Yeah, because we had done recognition. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so we
Can I read it back to you just to hear the
Yeah,
grammar?
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. The work group recommends the CTC update their webpage to include an PPA passing rate for each teacher preparation program. Information on the type of TPA offered and the required TPA documents, such as rubrics and task descriptions, to prioritize clear and intentional communication.
And instead of for reader comprehension, maybe that's where potential teacher candidates comprehension.
Okay.
And then we have to figure out what to do with that program should explicitly share this data with
That's like a
applicants.
whole different.
Yeah, because this, the way we've done it now is CTC needs to do something. Now, how are they going to make programs share that with their candidates? That's got to go. So that's got to go in program standard 5. But like, just think of the logistics of that. Somebody applies to a teacher ed program, and what do? Go to the CTC website and look at our, yeah.
It could be as simple as programs should explicitly link to this data. That is
There-
a
there-
one website tweak.
Yeah,
That will
and,
not be prohibitively expensive.
yeah, and
Because we're also like, this is on the backs of the students who are paying
there you
attention.
go. So programs should be required to link this data website to their own program information websites.
Okay, I don't think we need to prioritize clear and intentional communication for reader comprehension. I
Okay.
think that's like implied.
Sure,
That
just
like
make
it's-
it less wordy and,
Yeah,
yeah.
I like that this is very optional. Okay. The work group recommends the CTC update their webpage to include TPA passing rates for each teacher preparation program, information on the type of TPA offered, and the required TPA related documents such as rubrics and task descriptions. Programs should explicitly link this data within their applicant portals or websites. I think the note at the bottom, please note programs may include descriptions of justified data. We might just add, programs should explicitly link this data with their applicant portals or websites and may include descriptions to justify data.
I think it doesn't hurt to say that. I don't think we have to say that because programs can put whatever they
Yeah,
want
that's
on
true.
their website.
It's their
Like
website.
again,
Let
to
them do
make
their
it
job for them.
less wordy.
Yeah. This recommendation is necessary presenting this information clearly and transparently. Candidates can better evaluate which program and pathway aligns with their professional goals and needs.
Yeah.
Love that. And honestly, they have 99% of this on their website. And I'm always afraid everything we do is gonna cost
Yeah.
early career
Well,
teachers
But
money.
the critical piece is having their TPA pass rate.
Yes.
That's not available.
And
Yeah.
and somewhere we're going to be
Do-
talking about accreditation, and it's got to come up there too.
Do we want just a pass rate? How explicit do we want this pass rate to be? Do we want to break down by international city?
Oh,
Do we want to break it
No, I
down by
don't think-
first time versus second time?
You know, you got to think of the purpose of, like, maybe when we get into accreditation data where it's used for accreditation, like that level of detail.
Yeah,
But for this one, it's just a credential candidate looking to, do I want this program or that program? I don't think you want to get into the granular, you know,
Yeah.
ethnicity and this, it'll be overwhelming. It's too much. You just want
Just a
a
general
general indicator of,
another, it's gonna be a red flag if National University or someone like that has 100% pass rate and Stanford has 90.
right?
Right.
Or less.
Or
Well,
less.
there are places that have in the 30s. So
There are some as
Okay.
low as 10%.
Okay.
Mary
that
told me,
LPA
Mary told me
chart.
the lowest was in the 30s.
Yeah. Hopefully we adjust the accreditation. They're accepting like, GI Bill and stuff. That's money making.
So let's
money
move on to number
money
three.
talk.
Number three is like my big one, but I think we need to do something to make it have more. And I don't know if it goes somewhere else
I
or whatever,
received
but they
feedback.
absolutely have to connect.
I received feedback from a district coordinator regarding this exact topic. And so I would love to share the feedback. He let me know that often the goals that they create when they're student teaching, not district interns, are so far removed from the realities of their first placement that even like the data in terms of like classroom, the big ones, classroom management, curriculum, because they're so structured by mentor teachers and they have the desk clerk and the mentor teacher and stuff like that, that he said that even if we do have information from the TPA, it becomes moot the second they walk into their own classroom and the realities of teaching slam into them. And so he says, look, sometimes they bring it, not super helpful.
really?
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, wow, this is really eye-opening. Erin, I hope you're watching.
You're talking about the goals they set as student teachers?
So when they get into induction, because it's a different classroom setting, often a different school environment.
It always is, yeah.
Right, like they're different curriculum.
Right.
They don't have that guiding teacher there who's giving people
Right,
death
right,
certs and all that. He said, even when they do bring it, not that helpful.
I'm not thinking that
Yeah.
we're talking about the goals they set. What I'm thinking is the original intent that TPA results carry over into induction plans. That the original intent was that you get the results of TPA and candidates are aware of their strengths and weaknesses. And when they sit down with their mentor in induction, they can look at those results and set their goals with their support provider about, okay, I struggled with, math, blah, blah, blah. And then that's why it's supposed to be formative, is that you don't get your results and it's not just pass fail, but you use those results to continue your learning and you build on your weak areas. That was the intent. That was the formative nature of it, that it wasn't
see.
just learn and you're done.
And but he said, it's like looking at someone's baseball stats and then throwing them into a basketball court. He said it just didn't, like the goal they set.
But see, that's one person's experience, and I
Yeah,
don't think that's the
exactly.
norm.
Okay.
I think,
No, this is good feedback. This is
well,
good feedback.
could you think about like a student teacher, yes, they're at a different school, a different district, a different classroom, everything. But what if we agree that the assessment itself is valid in terms of what you're good at, what you're not good at, you're still gonna be good and not good at those same things in a different district, a different classroom, whatever. And it's kind of like, at least consider, take
Yeah.
the results
Okay.
and consider them. Like just think in TLA, how we have our mentors who
Absolutely.
make goals with their people.
Yeah.
If they had their TPA results and they could say, my lowest area across all of this was this, let's set that as a goal for me. Even though I'm in a whole different district and classroom and everything else. And it's at least to those things. And see, that was the intent. That was why it was supposed to be formative, because it would inform their continued learning, because induction is supposed to be continued learning.
Yeah.
But
I
at
like
least
that.
consider it. It's not like it creates them. It's not like
Yeah.
your TPA results means you must work on this, this, this. No, at least you consider it and it's carried over. And the induction program has at least that information to build on.
So I need to learn more about the IDP and where it happens in the.
Usually typically at the beginning
Of your
Right.
student teaching?
No,
it's
your
the beginning of induction.
first.
That's ILP.
Oh.
IDP is something different. So we have three things. We've got IDP, ILP, and TPA.
I think they might be using IDP and ILP interchangeably.
I think so, because the individual development plan typically is
That's
considered like,
pre-service.
yeah,
So I wasn't sure if they meant ILP right here or if.
I think it's meant to be ILP. I think that's the point of this, because when you look at the language about this, it's about induction, not about
we need
student teaching.
to ask the question about term.
Well, 100% of the program. Can you tell me more about the IDP and where it falls in this? So we've got IDP, I'm imagining enough of the IDP, TPA, induction, ILP's over here, I know that.
That happens within induction.
But
So the way I see it is you do your TPA. Well, but it just depends on when they do their TPA. If they do it, ideally, they're doing it in their program, and then it could inform the IDP. It doesn't necessarily inform the IDP because they do their IDP before they leave their program. And it follows them into induction, and it's used to, that's the idea. Okay.
Actually bring it. There you go.
That should
and that
come
was
to
the-
induction and then inform the ILP.
So this recommendation about improving communication across segments, this recommendation about improving communication across segments, they must mean ILP here, because if it was IDP, that's within a segment,
programs.
right?
Or
And
is
so
it saying
makes no
Like the
sense.
IDP goals to transfer
Well,
to the
no, I think it
That's what
is
she's saying.
IDP. You do, ideally, because ideally you get,
You get your TPA
TPA results and
before
then
you leave.
the program, but that's not always happening because
So where are the recommendations about TPAs informing induction?
the IDP is what also informs your
Because
induction.
that goes.
The IDP goes from your program to your induction. And
Well, then
then,
that needs to be explicit, because that's not at all what
I
this
feel like this
says.
needs to be worded.
Right,
Okay.
this is
I agree.
not at all about induction then. If IDP is not,
Except that
meant to
IDP
be
is supposed
ILP.
to go with you too.
to induction, IDP is supposed to inform ILP.
which it
They
doesn't.
have IDP goals for use in their induction program, like
For
in
use, yeah.
developing their
In,
ILP.
to develop an IELTS.
Use your individual development plan to create your individual learning.
The bureaucracy, you know what Hannah Arden says about bureaucracy?
Tell me.
Like, it is evil.
This recommendation, will make no sense to a whole lot of programs. If you say the information from the TPA be used to inform the IDP.
Well, I think
There
that
are,
makes
but
sense.
no,
Program
let
makes sense.
me finish.
Oh, sorry.
If the TPA isn't done until the completion of the program.
Yeah.
Then it makes no sense, because you get your TPA at the end and your IDP was
Already had
8 months
completed.
ago. So it will make no sense to probably the majority of programs that have TPA at the end.
So it's totally linked with the
And
part of being embedded.
Exactly.
Right, and so,
Exactly.
so
If
the
the
way it's written now
TPA is
doesn't
in-
work,
If the TPA is fully embedded in the program, though, it does make sense.
but it's not, so.
Yeah.
So the recommendations for it being embedded in a program have to go through for this to actually be possible. Yeah. So. it's-
Well, and then it depends on timing too, because if you make your IDP at the beginning of your program, at what point?
No.
You
You
can't
couldn't.
make it at the beginning of your program.
IDP is at the end.
Yeah, it's like the final thing you do, like candidates do that in the final meeting with their supervisor and their mentor teacher. Because it sets up the goals for induction.
So, in a lot of places right now, IDP is just a meaningless document. It's just a closeout document, because
Yeah.
most places it doesn't carry over into induction.
And sometimes they don't even save it.
Yeah, because it's up to the candidate.
It's just got
That was a conversation we had a while ago about having like a central
a clearinghouse of some
clearing
sort.
house of,
Yeah.
of government.
Well, then why even have, in terms of clarity, the candidates, why even have an IDP and an ILP? If an IDP
My
is
question.
at the end of the program and it's built on your TPA results and it's meant to inform your ILP,
Exactly.
why not just
Jump
make it
from
one
TPA
plan?
to ILP.
So the
That-
differences are IDPs based on TPEs. And ILP is CSTPs, which
But,
I have an issue with.
I
It's
think
not
we're
gonna
in the
be-
same one too. We're like
Well,
continuum.
Yes, but people
Well,
Don't like
that.
it. No.
well, and it's the difference between skills for a beginning teacher and skills for teachers in general. It's like, so we need to just consolidate IDP and ILP into one end of program document based on the TPA.
And
Well, ILP, you do multiple ILPs.
Right,
So
but
you
at
do
least the
4 through your
initial
induction.
induction one. I mean, we want to somehow get induction linked into this.
Yes,
can I ask a technical backend question?
please.
So the programs, okay, because I'm not a program coordinator. The programs report to the CTC that this person has a preliminary credential.
No, they don't know. The
No.
candidate has to
The
apply
candidate applies
through the program.
through the program.
The program signs
Signs
off,
off.
said, yes, you've completed everything.
Okay. And completed everything means that the program has access to the TPA scores, because remember, I'm pre-TPA.
Yeah.
So the program has access to the
Yeah.
TPA scores.
Yeah.
Is there a world, and this might be like a really technologically nightmare thing, where, right, the CTC website, when you log in and look up someone's credential number, has their name, preliminary credential in English, and then directly below, some sort of PDF of a score report of Cal TPA, Ed TPA, or FAST.
For the public
No,
Not for the
Okay.
public, for the individual user who logs in.
and for the people that hire, like, do the districts have access when I'm hiring?
See, and that makes me a little ick,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because you don't want that formative thing to follow you for the rest of your career. But also, it's a mechanism to retain some of this information.
For me as a candidate, it's helpful
Right.
because CTC has organized it for me.
Yeah.
And it's like
Beefy Kristen question.
officially, I can pull that if I needed to.
Right.
Because we have like so many disparate things. And you might have someone who attempts Cal TPA, then at TPA. This is of reality, probably not. And then Fresno, that would be crazy. But there, right. So you have somebody who attempts this, somebody who attempts that, and you can kind of support that documentation I also don't want to infantilize educators.
Right.
Like keep a piece of paper.
Oh, but
No, but it's hard. It's too much.
that's an accessibility thing too. It's
Mhm.
not infantilization for some people.
That's true.
So helpful or necessary for some, helpful for all.
Yeah.
Right?
Just the beauty of it.
Going back at what this recommendation it says it's trying to get at is that to support
Oh, right.
the formative nature of the TPA, right?
Yeah.
So again, if
Exactly what you said.
right,
So does this already exist?
no,
Number one.
no, if our goal here is to connect TPA results to induction.
Which they are supposed to do.
Right, but there's no mechanism for it and it does not
Mm.
happen.
Okay, it's not a document. Okay.
Well, right now, it's on the back of the candidate. The candidate
Mhm.
finishes a program and then gets hired by a district and
Mhm.
starts induction. And if they want to share their TPA results, they can, but if they want to pretend it never happened and just start over, they can do that too. There's no formal link. And it's just on the candidate if they want to do it or not. Induction doesn't require it.
No.
So maybe it goes into induction standards, that induction standards develop their first ILP with information from TPA results and the IDP.
So,
Well, this is requiring for reparation programs. Before you give this candidate an IDP, they have to pass TPA
CPS,
Right,
and use that data to inform. So they were kind of consolidating from TPA.
because that's enforceable. We
Yes.
cannot expand into induction, right? And we're not touching induction.
no, we can, we absolutely can. We can make recommendations about what induction has to do. What all that furor was about was that people thought we were talking about moving TPA into induction. That's what all the furor was about, and we never thought we were doing that. What we're talking about here is telling induction, you need to use this data that exists, that is important. That's reasonable.
Because right now I think you
That's-
need to ask if that's just a suggestion. Because it's this like, when you ask
commission can
somebody,
do
they'll
it.
say, well, that's how it's supposed to be. Everybody knows
Yeah,
that.
the commission absolutely can do it. And what we need to see is what's the induction standard now about what ILPs are based on. But yeah, the commission can absolutely tell induction programs
They
they
must.
need to
Mm.
at least consider.
Well, I think it's already considered. I think it's maybe
think
even
it
a should.
is,
Yeah, but I don't
not a
think it's in,
must.
I don't think it's in an induction program standard.
That's-
You're gonna look.
I'm looking at the CSTPs right now.
Well, it's not in the CSTPs. I'm thinking of induction program standard approval. Those components. Designing it, it should be in standard 3, designing and implementing ILPs.
Mhm.
Must be collaboratively developed at the beginning of induction by the candidate and the mentor with input from the employer regarding job assignment and guidance from staff. Must include professional growth goals and the description of how the candidate will work to meet those goals, designed and measurable outcomes, planned opportunities to reflect on practice and modify. Specific teaching assignment should provide the purpose of
Sorry.
for the development candidate may address additional goals based on the candidate's professional interests, such as exam certification, blah, 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 blah. Within the ILP, the program must assist There's nothing in here about TPA or IDP, nothing,
Hmm. Hmm.
zero.
So can we
So then
add
the
an additional
recommendation is
recommendation?
for,
So that would be four.
it would note it. I think it replaces three because three is sort of meaningless. I think. So in the same way that recommendation one started off program standard 5, this is induction program standard 3 be revised to include, and there's a sentence in here about,
But I think this is useful to say to the preparation programs, you can't give somebody an IDP until they've
Without
passed the
TPA
TPA,
scores.
because information from the TPA has to inform the IDP.
oh, but here's where I'm not clear. What do they use the IDP for? You're done with the program, you passed the TPA, you're about to get hired and make an ILP.
It's a final
What's,
reflection.
but what do you do? I mean, you're making goals for a program you're done with. What's the point of completing a program, completing the TPA, and then making an IDP? And then 2 months later, you're hired and you're making an ILP.
Mm.
It's a duplication of the same process. Why even have an IDP at that point?
I think that it allows the preparation program to send candidates out with a reflection and an understanding of their strengths and weaknesses. But the difference with an ILP is that final thing you read about input from the employer, because then you contextualize it.
Well, so then
We'll add
if
that.
this goal, so if this is the information from the TPA be used to inform the development of IDP, and then you add to that, and the IDP then becomes the basis of the ILP within the induction program. And then you have to add to this one too, that they include this information. So, okay, if this recommendation, if we leave it the way it is, but we add on, we use the development of IDP goals, which then serve as the basis for induction and development of ILPs. And then we have to have a recommendation for.
And that this is another one of those, this is the big question that I want to ask preparation programs is, why is it essential that there is an IDP that's based on TPEs? I guess it's their way of saying you have met all the TPEs.
I think too, I'm just trying to imagine and wrap my head around this. Reducing the person to a singular test score, right, may not fully encompass their abilities as an educator and also kind of their experiences. And so an IDP might be a more humanizing look at their experiences, so that you can kind of translate the data
Oh, that would so help me as a
as a
mentor.
lens.
But see, that's the piece of it moving over. I don't think without the IDP, I don't think they're reduced to just a test score. Because if you think of the reality of a candidate's done, and they're just so happy to be done that they just want to be passed and move on. They're not caring about. I don't think anybody cares about the IDP
Unless induction requires.
unless induction requires it and it carries over. Then it's got some meaning.
And I think it would, so I've only experienced one induction program. So I'm sure that there are many that do it differently. And I've only had so many candidates myself, but I would love that requirement. And when I've talked to people, they've said, well, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be, but it's on candidates, right?
Yeah.
So I would appreciate it as a mentor to be able to say, if you meet somebody, they're brand new, they just got a job, they're just happy to be there. Tell me about yourself. They're like,
Yeah.
just like, I don't know what's good or what's bad, but can I tell you?
Yeah.
But if
I think, okay, so hear me out. I think this is, and Tina's is like actionable. I think this is actionable, that we recommend information from the TPA used to inform the development of IDP goals to develop an ILP within an induction program. I don't think it requires a recommendation for, because it says within induction.
I agree.
But you think it needs to be like,
Well, the induction program has to have some responsibility. This
So-
is just saying that they're going to do it at the program in the pre-service, and you're saying that's what it's meant to do. Okay, it's meant to do that. And then if induction chooses to ignore it, then you've accomplished nothing.
So an additional recommendation that's specific to our induction kind of credentialing or accreditation system
that it needs to at least acknowledge and take into account the TPAs.
Or adjust
Right.
it, yeah. That it's,
I'm gonna make another slide.
that the IDP is
Yeah,
used
right.
for the
I see
ISP.
it.
Then that becomes a requirement.
Can I add a thought? Would that be okay?
Hey,
Hey, you guys, here you are, Dream Team. Um, I remember when UC Santa Cruz used to provide all of their graduates with a kind of personalized summary of, your progress. It was very um, kind of faculty saying to you, we've enjoyed working with you. You've brought, these are things that we see you've learned and excelled at, and here are some areas in your field where you may want to, consider doing other things. Anyway, that kind of personalized report. It was not a report card and more than transcript because it was actually an engaged kind of communication from the faculty to the graduate. And I remember that being wow, that is so great that UC Santa Cruz does that. And, not necessarily scalable, but I kind of think of the IDP as that sort of summation from that's more than the sum of your score from your program. And if your program and faculty are really engaged with you in the completion of your whole program, with the embedded performance assessment being right in there with it, sure, you're going to get your rubric scores, and that's going to tell you, something about where you landed in scoring on this. But it seems to me that the IDP could be more than that. These scores are, you're not the sum total of your scores. You're a human endeavoring to become a professional in this work. And it seems to have the potential of helping you to understand what your zone of proximal development is, but also respecting that you as the holder of this, as the person, you hold it. This is the feedback you've received from your program, and you're going into your next program, which is going to be picking you up from where you are and helping you to get where you want to go. And you have some agency in that as a candidate, as a teacher. So this information from your IDP should be really functional in supporting your goal setting with your mentor in induction. And your induction program should know you have something like that coming out and invite you to put that on the table as you're working on your ILP, right? That's kind of how I think about these things. And somebody said a minute ago that nobody is paying attention to the IDP, and I think that is true. And I think, therefore, it's failing to reach any of its potential. And it may be a stretch to assume that this large system of preparation can actually be effective in sending candidates into their next stage of development, the next big system of induction. And this is a meaningful connector. But anyway, just some comments on your comments. And I'm going to go off again because you don't want to hear from us. You want to, well, I mean, maybe you do, but I don't want to.
Also, just briefly, Executive Director Sandy, I'm a product of UC Santa Cruz. And when the moment you step foot in their teacher preparation, literally the very first meeting, they said, you're here to be a teacher leader. And so their depth of what they do with you, that narrative evaluation is what you're talking about. And narrative evaluations are embedded throughout their system. So I don't know if it's scalable, but I will tell you as a teacher, you come out and you just know exactly what your strengths are and your opportunities of growth and just how to kind of strategically continue to build your skill set. But they teach you from the beginning, you're there to be a teacher leader. And it's a different mindset too. So I just wanted to share because you specifically talked about UC Santa Cruz, and I will tell you, it's a very different program, but some of the elements of what they do produce incredibly strong teachers.
So the language I'm proposing, which I think reflects what you're both saying, is that the way Rec 3 is currently written, we just add to it. So it says the work groups recommend the information from the TPA be used to inform the development of IDP goals as the basis for later ILP and induction goals. We just add to that. And then I suggest also that we add a fourth recommendation that says the work groups recommend that induction program standard 3 be revised to include consideration of TPA and IDP information in the development of the ILP and induction goals.
Like, you're gonna have to talk so much slower if you want me to type that. Okay, thank you.
10:15.
Oh, this is
We
our
got
last
the
one.
one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got the little short one, so thank you for that.
Yay.
Coffee or tea? No, yeah, questions out first.
I had a question and then I got so excited about our break.
Um,
Oh. So at this point, are we able to add a new recommendation? Because we've already gone through the process of voting on them. I mean, we're gonna do it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I just,
yeah.
I think it's supposed to be iterative and yeah. Okay, go for it.
It's so good.
Thank
Like
you for the
nobody's gonna have
yes.
negative feedback.
yeah. Oh, we say that. Oh, I'm, we're gonna jinx ourselves seven
Sorry,
different
so,
ways.
so sorry.
This give me a real question. Should I capitalize induction?
Do we capitalize teacher preparation program?
Induction program standards. I'm just gonna leave it lowercase. But Beverly, this is lovely. Your wording is.
Thank
very
you.
nice. Yeah.
Thank you. Good.
That's of all of the things that we're considering, this link to induction is the most critical for me. Of everything we might accomplish, that's to me. In fact, at dinner last night, Mary and Tina and I were saying, okay, if you could fix one thing about TPA, just one thing, what would you fix? And Mary said that it was better embedded in programs.
Mm.
I said that the link to induction is
Yeah.
solidified, that we use it. That was the whole intent. And then the third one we all agreed on was that the use of it in accreditation, that it becomes accountability for programs more than it is at all. Because that was the other intent too. TPA is not just about assessing the candidate. You know, it's one thing to say, yes, this person is ready to be a teacher. But there's a whole other side of it in the aggregate that is meant to say this program is doing a good job of
Mhm.
preparing people.
It is everything
Yeah.
before you spend all your money on a program that's not gonna prepare you.
Two questions. One, I want to hear the one thing you would change, but also, can I keep that this recommendation is necessary? It'll support the formative nature. Implementation of this recommendation is intended to address this by creating space for continued professional growth. So the same language at the end, like why it's necessary.
Could I look at it? I
Yeah,
can see
yeah,
it.
these 2 points. And then what would you change?
What
What's
used
your
to be
one?
there?
The same. It's
Oh.
kind of the same on all the slides, the last two.
I think I would add to the, it's necessary because it supports the formative nature of the TPA throughout pre-service and induction.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'll keep it as an induction. Oh, I lost it. Okay. The induction program standards be revised to include consideration of TPA and IDP information throughout.
No, it didn't go there. I thought you were
Oh,
looking,
sorry.
where I was
As
looking
necessary
is you had back in
Oh,
recommendation three.
throughout.
Yeah. I think the rationale for Rec 3 and Rec 4 is the same. It's
Yes.
necessary because it will support the formative nature of the TPA throughout pre-service and induction.
Thank you.
I don't know if that implementation thing kind of makes sense, creating space for continual professional growth. Just seems sort of,
Flowery?
yeah, it's sort of, new agey. We're creating space for it.
We're keeping space for wicked. What's it mean?
Is it?
There was like a meaning, like
missed it.
creating space for the defined. It's like nonsense words that
Right.
people use. So gonna do a sneaky thing in the. I think we, hey stakeholders, we're gonna take a break because we're at a good stopping point. I don't know if anyone's there, but I want to tell you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. You're really cool.